November 12, 1942, the western desert of North Africa baked under a pitiless sun. Among the wreckage of a shattered British supply column sat an unexpected prize, a captured American vehicle abandoned in the sand. Its crew had fled when their position became untenable. Standard Wehrmacht procedure dictated that such vehicles be destroyed or left behind. But the reconnaissance officer in charge had other ideas. "Get our best mechanic," he ordered. "I want to know if we can use this thing." When the mechanics arrived, they expected another crude foreign contraption, a curiosity at best, a death trap at worst. But within half an hour, their assumptions began to crumble. The small placard on the dash read, "Willys MB." The Americans called it a Jeep. The first revelation came when they lifted the hood. The engine compartment wasn't just well-designed, it was intuitive. Every wire was color-coded, every component labeled, and everything could be reached without special tools. In 2 decades of working on German vehicles, the senior mechanic had never seen anything so easy to maintain. Every bolt was standard. Many parts were interchangeable across multiple vehicles. It was the opposite of German design philosophy, not perfection but practicality. Beneath the hood sat the Go Devil engine, a 134 cubic inch inline-4 that produced around 60 horsepower. By German standards, that was unimpressive, but the point was never power. It was philosophy. The Jeep was designed to be simple, reliable, and above all, mass-producible. Any soldier with a wrench could keep it running. Farm boys, factory workers, men with no formal training. That simplicity was revolutionary. By 1942, the difference between American and German design philosophies had become stark. The United States would eventually produce more than 640,000 Jeeps during the war. Germany built just over 50,000 Kübelwagens. The difference was not just in numbers, but in worldview. When officers came to inspect the find, the senior mechanic told them frankly, "This vehicle is remarkable. It was designed by someone who understands what it means to fight in the field." One officer frowned. "German engineering is the finest in the world." The mechanic didn't argue. He simply gestured to the drivetrain. "One lever engages four-wheel drive. Our Kübelwagens can't even do that." The Kübelwagen was lighter, more fuel-efficient, and air-cooled, classic hallmarks of German engineering excellence. But it lacked four-wheel drive, a serious handicap in North Africa's soft sand. The Jeep, by contrast, simply powered through. Its crude-looking leaf-spring suspension seemed unsophisticated next to German torsion bars, but it was tougher, easier to repair, and astonishingly effective. The German mechanics drove the captured Jeep through dunes, over rocks, and across riverbeds. They overloaded it, abused it, and ran it for days. It never faltered. It crawled up slopes the Kübelwagen couldn't attempt, and plowed through sand where other vehicles bogged down. Soon, officers from neighboring units came to see it for themselves. Their reactions followed a predictable pattern: laughter, disbelief, silence. "This represents a fundamental difference," one supply officer said grimly. "We build for perfection. They build for production. And in total war, that matters more." Reports of the Jeep's design reached Berlin. Technical analysts studied the philosophy behind it. Cast components instead of machined ones, standardized bolts, stamped metal panels that could be produced in factories that once made refrigerators or washing machines. America had mobilized everything for war. Germany, still devoted to craftsmanship and precision, simply couldn't match that scale. By 1943, American industry was producing vehicles by the thousands per day. Ford's Willow Run plant turned out a B-24 bomber every 63 minutes. Shipyards launched Liberty ships faster than U-boats could sink them. It wasn't just an industrial advantage, it was industrial warfare. The captured Jeep became a local celebrity in the Africa Corps. Officers used it for reconnaissance. Soldiers begged for a turn behind the wheel. Spare parts were scavenged from other captured vehicles, and miraculously, they always fit. Interchangeability, a concept foreign to German logistics, was the Jeep's quiet superpower. In May 1943, the Africa Corps surrendered in Tunisia. Around 250,000 Axis troops became prisoners. Among them were mechanics who had learned more from that Jeep than from years of training. Their education was far from over. In American prison camps, they saw abundance that defied belief. Rows upon rows of jeeps, trucks, and tanks stretched to the horizon. Young American soldiers, many barely out of school, maintained fleets of vehicles with calm efficiency. When something broke, they fixed it in hours. When parts were missing, replacements arrived in days. One German mechanic befriended an American sergeant who spoke some German. "We make things simple," the sergeant explained, showing him a color-coded wiring diagram. "Any farm boy can fix it. We don't need engineers. We need problem solvers. How many do you produce?" the German asked. The sergeant shrugged. "Thousands a week. We've got so many Jeeps. If one breaks down, we just grab another." It sounded absurd until the German saw it with his own eyes. A single American motor pool held more vehicles than an entire German division, all sharing the same basic components. Bolts, wiring, hydraulics, all interchangeable. Logistics simplified, maintenance accelerated, production multiplied. The realization was painful. German engineering produced masterpieces. But in wartime, American manufacturing won battles. Years later, that same mechanic worked in a US-run motor pool in occupied Germany. The cities lay in ruins, but everywhere were American vehicles rebuilding the nation they had defeated. Trucks delivering food, jeeps carrying officers and engineers, Germans and Americans working side by side. When asked what Germany should build next, the mechanic said, "A vehicle smaller than a jeep, more efficient, but built with the same philosophy, simplicity, common parts, reliability." He was prophetic. Within a decade, Volkswagen, once the maker of the Kübelwagen, was producing the Beetle, a car that embodied that philosophy. It became one of the most successful vehicles in history. Germany had learned its lesson through defeat. The very mechanics who had once examined a dusty, captured Jeep went on to rebuild their country using American principles: standardization, simplification, manufacturability. By the 1960s, Germany's economic miracle was in full swing. Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, and BMW thrived by combining German precision with American-style mass production. When veterans of the Africa Corps gathered decades later, they spoke not of tanks or battles, but of that Jeep. One said, "The Kübelwagen was better engineered, but the Jeep was better for war." Another added quietly, "When I learned they made more Jeeps in a week than we made Kübelwagens in a year, that's when I knew we would lose." In the end, the Jeep was more than a machine. It was a symbol of practicality over perfection, of production over precision. It proved that winning a modern war required not the best machine, but the best system. The Jeep was a system on wheels, proof that simplicity multiplied by scale could change history, and for the German mechanics who first examined that captured Jeep in the desert, it became something else, a teacher. A lesson in humility, adaptation, and the power of engineering that serves reality rather than pride. Because in total war, perfection fails, but practicality endures. Sometimes victory looks like four wheels, a flat hood, and a small metal plate that simply reads Willys MB